Hey, welcome to our webinar with Powerhouse. I'm here with Callum Cooper, Head of Digital, and Joseph Ocampo, Senior Digital Developer, both at Powerhouse. And I'm CTO and co-founder here at Sanity. So I appreciate this amazingly named museum. This is not a single museum. This is like a group of museums.
Yeah.
And as a parent, like if you ask your kids to come to the Technological, Industrial and Sanitary Museum of New South Wales, that's hard to sell. And even the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences kind of sounds boring, but Powerhouse, that sounds like a nightclub.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the story?
Yeah, so the museum itself has 4 different locations. And in the 1980s, it took over a space which was formerly a powerhouse. So that's where the name comes from. And one of the things that we did 2.5 years ago was go back to that original name from the 80s, although the museum itself has had many iterations from the 1800s to now. So in that identity change, we were trying to consolidate and make it clearer. And one of the things to do that and enable that was to switch our website across to Sanity and make it a bit more content rich, which is partly what we're going to talk about today.
Ah, so where were you? Like, what were you on initially, or at the
So
time
I've
you
been
moved
at the
choice?
museum for 4 years. So when I arrived, we were running a WordPress instance, and it was kind of a legacy website that we were one of the first museums in Australia to have a website. And I think now when we changed over to Sanity, we were actually one of the first cultural institutions to choose Sanity as our platform. And one of the motivations for that was really one, this renewal. 2, we have an inventory of collection objects. We have over 500,000 things from the applied arts and science. And as part of the renewal, we've been digitizing and making those more accessible and for the public. So we were looking at a headless system, was really appealing to us. And then we have these multiple locations. So there's 4 locations across Sydney, and one of them is under construction now, which I'm sure we'll talk about over the duration of our conversation.
Can you give us like for the ones the few of us who are not in or from Australia, like what's the role of this institution in the wider culture of Australia? Like what kind of museum is this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a museum of applied arts and science. So if you're from Europe, it might be similar to the V&A, and certainly the origins are very similar. Or if you're from America, it's similar to the Smithsonian. So
Right.
one of the things that's kind of is unique to this museum and is of an interest to me is that it's a museum of applied arts and science, meaning that it's not just the finished artwork or finished invention, it's the process in making it and getting there. And so like a conversation like this is interesting because we're going behind the hood of the final thing and seeing the process behind it. And it's part of the mandate of the museum is to reflect those ideas.
This kind of sense feels like this is kind of museum of everything, kind of in the like of all of the things in society.
Yeah, we have like technology from like Mesopotamian coins through to the Apple I computer as a prototype. So we'll click through and have a look at some of the collection, and it's all publicly available. And we've done this massive digitization project where each object has been taken out and photographed against a white background and uploaded into online so that it can be looked at.
Yeah. So should we take a look? Just so you have a single studio setup. Everything from all your locations is kind of controlled from there. And we'll go into the kind of the content operations later, like who is running this and how and stuff like that. But maybe just kind of now let's have a look at the studio and the kind of an overview of the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I'll just share my screen. So this is our studio instance here. We have a few different core document types, which I guess are the different entities that we use to build up the website. Probably the most important things are the pages, which we use for a lot of the content pages, the programs, which is another section that we use for all our programming and events, and stories, which houses some more of the kind of editorial content. And then we have some other document types which are reusable components that we can use throughout the website, like call to actions, collection objects, products. There are some profiles that we have here, which are organizations and people that we can use to reference throughout the website. Locations, which is where we house the multiple precincts that we have. And then also different locations that we use as references to the programming that we do. And then there's also some First Nations countries that we use for referencing on our programs as well. And then we have some of the website controls and settings that we keep in this section here.
Nice. So your programs, these are like events, but they're running for a longer time. These are kind of is that, or what's the program in your world?
So yeah, programs are, we run Sydney Design Week, Sydney Science Festival. So we run festival programs. At the moment, we have a computer games festival that's launched. Then we have exhibitions. Some of those exhibitions run for multiple years. Others run for like a month. And then we have events, which are shorter term that are associated. That might be like a workshop, or it might be a tour, or it might be, a short event, a screening, for instance.
So a program has one or more like events, so the program kind of binds them together. Is that?
Yeah, so the program's kind of a terminology for like the programming of the museums. Just like a kind of catch-all.
So that's like a recurring thing with like a number of events and things and it attached to it. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's typically like, it's like with the what's on page is like what is on at the museum, but also these programs, once they're finished, they go into an archive. And so we're in the process of building out the archive, which has like, you can see here by year. So from 2026 back to 1800. And we're going to like fill that in with all the different exhibitions, probably not all the events, but certainly like some milestone projects. So, each year we probably have between, like, I've been here 4 years and there's probably, like, I've worked on over 30 exhibitions, like countless events, the 7 festivals. So there's lots of things happening, probably like, I don't know, 1,000 things a year. At least.
Nice.
So there's a volume of things that we need to input into Sanity and that are constantly updating and adjusting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see the databases from the 50s with your old content in it. Like, how do you get at that? Is like old museum programs and stuff like that? Do you have that like on storage? Of course, you're a museum, so of course you're.
Yeah, we have it in like its paper archive. So we're working with the archives team in order to upload that, and we've done, when we launched the MVP to like 18, 19 months ago, we put a kind of placeholder image, and we can look at it in the front end in a minute, but like some of the archival images, some text, and we've been using the annual reports in particular to like orientate that. But also we have an archives team. We've got the museum's been running for over 140 years. It's has a collection that has things that are thousands of years old in it. So very much about creating a portal that holds all of that, and it makes it accessible to the public, because there's a lot of work that happens in the back for a museum. So really trying to broadcast that and hold it in Sanity.
So here you have like your programs with your events, and then there are stories that I'm assuming are some kind of feature, visually rich stories or something like that, probably.
Yeah, editorially led content.
Yeah, right. But then, like, we usually teach people to never make anything called pages, but you made something called pages. What are pages?
I guess pages just house kind of content that's maybe a little bit more static and doesn't change much. Things like the about page. What's a few examples? Yeah, about pages, contact pages, and they still have page builders inside of them that we use for building out content.
Right. So this is
Would
like
you want through some in the front end a bit later as well to show you how these pages come together.
Right. So this is kind of your fallback for this, like the other.
Yeah,
Like
pretty
other
much
kinds of
so,
content.
yeah.
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 Yeah. Cool. Okay. So yeah, it's just like that's so program stories, locations. That's your different museums and media. What's media in this context?
So it's like
What's,
press releases.
Oh,
and it's
media, that kind of media, not like films and stuff, but like this is
Yeah.
right.
So films and stuff will be captured in stories.
Makes sense.
Like stories is also kind of content, you know.
Right. So these are PR kind of like press releases and stuff that this is for media.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So like
Right.
that, yeah. And so opportunities in media, we actually have it set up now with permission so that those teams within the museum can have only access to those sections. So when they open their instance of Sanity, all they have is those branches, not access to be able to adjust anything else. And as we move forward with developing out the museum, we'll have more access given to different areas of the museum. So maybe the research department has access to their section. Maybe the programming team has access to update and adjust programs, ticketing, etc. But should we have a look at the front? Do you want to see the front end?
Yeah, perfect. Yes.
So here is the homepage. So we kind of lead with this with a module, which is a full bleed video. We have this kind of identity, which we're playing around with, and that will be we're actually going to use instances of Sanity within our digital signage in one of the new buildings.
Nice.
As we scroll down, we see these programs. These are kind of a highlight of those programs in the different locations. We have the CTA, which Joseph had mentioned, and then the 4 locations. Powerhouse collection. So the collection at the moment, we're planning to bring it onto Sanity, but yeah, so that's part of the process in the future. Then we have the stories, and this stories will go to an index page for the stories. More content, and then if we come up to here, we can see that there's those different locations. So at the moment, Castle Hill is where the collection is stored. So as one location, sorry, bit of slow. So this is the collections website, so you can see all the different types of objects. And there's, if you see anything that you want us to click on, shout out.
Now I think your sharing is stuck. I just see the page with the collections link. I don't think we followed you along to that next page.
Because I need to. Okay, I see some issue here.
You need to reshare for every link. It's a very secure setup you have. It's very secure.
Maybe I'll do window as an option.
Yeah.
How's this?
But I think like while you are, here we are.
Is that working?
Perfect. There we go. Yeah.
So we have
Now I
the
see
collection site here.
Yeah, nice. Such a
so
like a computer disk for like a 5.25-inch computer disk.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
This is Apple Works.
Apple II, Apple Works. Oh my God. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you have that, and then you have like that's like, I love that that's heirloom at this point. Yeah, and then you have
robotic arms. So this is one of the first robotic arms that was developed for manufacturing in America. So all of the objects, regardless of their kind of significance, have been photographed against these white backgrounds. And then when we come back to the Powerhouse website, so we have Castle Hill, which is the location where all of these objects are stored, and it's visible on the weekends. So that is programming. So that programs module that we saw before is here, along with the events variant of that module. Then we've got the module that has like kind of drop down, a map module, a video module, different stories. Then we
And
have,
now we are on a page in
yeah,
your content structure.
this is actually a
And these
precinct.
are
But
so,
yeah,
okay, so that's a different no, so that's a different content model. A precinct is a content model, and
yeah.
are they sharing the same page builder kind of setup? These different
Yes.
content types?
So the different
Yes.
pages share pretty much the same page builder setup, and they all have access to the same modules,
Mm.
which is, I think, yeah, a lot of them get used on all the different document types. So it's okay, I guess, that we share the exact same page builder. We don't lock off any particular modules for different document types at the moment anyway.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So like you can kind of have a clean kind of top level, like you said, this is a precinct, very simple model. And then you reuse all of that kind of, because I think a lot of people, when they mismodel, they make page because I think, oh, the most important thing is that they have like a page structure, and then you have
Yeah.
to use pages for all of these things. But whereas you kind of reuse the kind of the innards, the guts
Yeah.
of the pages are the same across, but like your top level thing can be then very specific about what it is, which allows you to do these automatic things like bringing up these events based on a filter. I'm sure, like.
Yeah.
Because that was events from a specific location, not even like this is not one of the main locations. This is just one of your event
Correct.
locations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess one thing we've been thinking about and working through is like the breadcrumbs. And part of that is to help orientate people, because what we discovered with the headless system was that often people were coming organically. They might come to this program that's a philosophy program around time. That's
Exactly.
at
Every
the
page is an
Sydney
entry page
Observatory.
in the age of Google. Yeah.
Yeah. And so therefore, once they get here, they might not directly associate it with Powerhouse. So thinking about how we can get them to, and we haven't fully implemented it yet, but thinking about how all of these different pages, like the stories, for instance, if we come through and clicking on any of these stories, we're only recently thinking about like, okay, this is in isolation to the rest of the pages. So it's that balance between it being completely headless and existing in its own universe and connecting it back to like a parent-child relationship, but particularly when we've got content series, which potentially we could go into the back end and have a look at how some of those that we've just seen. Let me just stop.
I just want to say also, like this is so beautiful. This is so visually rich. Like what, like is all of this happening in house, or are you using agencies? Like how do you how's this all produced?
So as head of digital, I'm looking after three streams, like three types of teams. One is a digital content team. So a lot of the material that you've seen that we've just walked through comes from that digital content team. And then there is the digital product team, which Joseph's part of, which we have a really great set of highly skilled people, like a product manager, developers, and then we have a digital engagement team. So that team looks after thinking about how a video is on the website, is on social media, how it all interconnects in an omni-channel approach. So really trying to think that we're in this period of time now where content is liquid and it's going to find its way in multiple outlets, and it might even be remixed or changed by somebody completely unrelated to us. So always trying to like lead with the content. And I guess a consideration is that as a museum, we're a platform for people to, platform for others. It's the history of the museum. It's always been to like elevate other people's things. And so therefore the website structure, and one of the reasons why we were interested in a headless and Sanity in particular was that it would play nicely in terms of that, where we create this infrastructure, these structures that maybe Joseph can show you, the modules, and those modules can then be filled in and accelerated by a beautiful film, by a nice piece of content, by
Exactly.
photography.
Maybe you can bring up that page where the story we just saw, if that's possible. To the but like the production, like do you have like internal film for the photo teams, or how does that work?
Yeah, we've got a combination of both. So say like this project here, we produced it internally, but we worked with an external director, Leo. So we worked the brief up with him. And this is actually part of this project here is part of a larger program called Sampling the Collection. So for the past 2 years, as well as taking photos of the collection, we've also recorded the sound of those objects. And that's been released with Ableton, which is a sound production company or software company, as a sample pack.
I have it next to this.
Yeah. So you can download over 100 samples of different objects from the collection and make music with. And that article is about this musician, Jaylin, who came to the museum a few months ago and recorded a track that she's just released. It was on BBC Six last week. And it uses the samples from the collection.
Who's so who will be kind of setting this up? Is that the content team themselves kind of running this, building this page?
That's a good question. We're kind of still in the MVP phase of that. So we have a web producer, Bernadette, who is the kind of main custodian to the website, ensuring that there's like visual consistency and that the modules are used in the right way. She's been instrumental in making sure that there's that consistency.
Right.
However, in the future, we would imagine that would be there'd be a section where the stories section would be open to the editorial team, like to the wider part of the museum, and then there would just be permissions where there's one person who's the web editor that is able to publish, but these systems would be set up because, as I was mentioning before, the volume of content that we're creating for the museum, there is like a lot of touch points and a lot of editing that's needed.
Yeah. Like, so your workflow is kind of Google Docs or something, and then in the end you implement like this typically.
Yeah. And I mean, there's lots of conversations, and we know which modules are going to work where. And for instance, with this in this Jaylin, maybe Joseph can talk through what we're seeing in the back end here.
Yeah, so I guess some of the things that we've done in the back end is really try to work with the content editors to make the studio experience good. So some of the things I think that we've done from the development side is building a few custom plugins that we've put into the studio. So the team has created pretty much like a tree hierarchy viewer. And we've done that to try to help filter the content within their correct groupings. And also,
so the top here is series. That's like programs, but for stories.
Yeah, so that would just group a series of stories which belong together in their series. So an example of this is we actually flag what the parent document is. So if I go up, I think it's over here. So we'll be referencing the series, which I think is like probably one of the coolest things you could do in Sanity, how easy it is to like reference other documents by just adding fields in the schema. It makes, I guess, life as a developer so easy when you can kind of model your content and think about how your content links in this kind of way. So we use that reference to the series to create these groupings, which is also, I think, a big plus to the UX of content editors, because they can, they can get a sense and get the context of how things fit together in terms of all the content that we're doing. There's so many different stories, there's so many different programs. So even if it's a new content editor, they can come in the studio and they kind of understand the context behind a story and where it fits in within the.
Can you even have? It looks like you can even have stories inside stories. Like this is nested even deeper, or
yeah, you can nest. You can nest deeper if you want.
There's a program, a good example of that, like one of those.
Is this like an? Do we have this feature, or is this something you wrote? The nested.
So James, who we work with as a developer, built this custom plugin, and it's pretty much using a listen query, and then we've also hijacked the inbuilt preview card by like kind of going through GitHub and looking
perfect. I love the fact that you can create custom, not only like, of course, everyone knows you can do custom kind of fields and all that, but you can also create custom navigation. I think that's beautiful. I haven't seen
so
this before. This should be standard Sanity feature. It looks fantastic.
It's pretty much, piggybacking off all the awesome stuff that's built into Sanity and just trying to build custom things to help our content editors kind of like navigate and just work around Sanity.
Yeah.
So this is probably an example of how we can like deeply nest the content. And if we were to probably jump into one of these, it also helps us like create the URL paths of how we will be managing the like information architecture through the site and creating the URLs
And the breadcrumbs.
and the breadcrumbs as well,
For
eventually.
the front-end user.
What? Sorry.
Oh, and it'll influence the breadcrumbs that we want to put on the front.
Yeah, the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was important to you because, like you said, people will very often end from a Google search or something like in the middle of the rug somewhere. And then you want them to kind of understand the wider context and kind of engage with more. But it also looks like you're really good at, because back in the day when we were agencies, we kept also like advising people like they're your front page is not your front page, and the rest of the page needs to sell the rest of the site. And it looks like you also really do that. Like you use that structured content to put like related content below the main story or main event or program. Is that fair? Is that true? Like I saw a lot of it where you send people.
Relatively recently, it's been automated, but before that, we were manually putting related content at the end of each page. So that's and then one of the things maybe that's interesting to talk a little bit about is the tagging of those, because we've just very recently started tagging every single document.
and this is in order just to understand. This is in order to be able to then show related content, because very often the need you have is to sell more fresh content on stale content. Like I'm Googling something, I'm in an old story. Now I want to sell you an event that actually on like coming in the future. Is that?
Yeah, and I think the state, like even like if we look at the analytics of our pages, like there might be somebody, like we haven't integrated the collections website in here yet, but you know there might be somebody that arrives on that robotic arm who is like an engineer and they're interested in that robotic arm, and then to be able to tag and surface them like an engineering workshop at the museum or some other piece of content via the collections website, which has a lot of organic reach, you know, like people from Pinterest who might have seen a pin there and then they
like a moron like me coming to look at that Apple disc that you just showed me. Like like now I learn about Powerhouse. I've never heard of you but I'm interested in that disc. But then like this is just to talk about like fact that putting related content on the end manually sounds like a good idea until you realize like my growing number of pages is my kind of catch net. I can catch lots of attention, but it needs to be always fresh. The next stage that I want, so I can't update more and more pages. So this is automating that.
It was always an MVP kind of consideration, and then
of course,
suddenly we were like, we should change that.
Joseph, show us the tagging. Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so I think this is another area where we kind of just make these small customizations in the studio through plugins to try help the content editors navigate and pretty much.
Oh, right. So you have a very limited set of tags. Like a lot of people would do a gazillion tags or some open-ended. This is really good. Like you decided these are our tags. We'll stick with this.
Yeah, and they might not surface directly to the end user. But one of the things that happened when I first arrived here and I noticed the tagging on our old website, there was like, to your point, like 10,000 tags. And some of them were like 80-piece puzzle, 150-piece puzzle, 1,000-piece puzzle. It could just be puzzle. And when you've got 500,000 objects, it's like just maybe grouping them into themes rather than specifics is where we've tried to start with now. And also there's not typically a program, there's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be as somebody that's interested in floppy disks might also be interested in Norwegian history, who might also be interested in, you know, something completely unrelated. So there might be multiple tags.
I think as well.
Exactly. So here it's like this is an event about time, and it has space, science, and First Nations as related. Yeah, interesting.
I think as well, like
Sorry.
this comes from a document where we create these taxonomies. So they're also flexible and can be, you know, built
so
up.
you can get to 10,000 tags in some years.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it might happen.
Sorry, Joseph.
Yeah.
But having that flexibility is great too. Just being able to add more things, or if new, I guess, new groupings of taxonomies are needed, we can easily build those within our studio so content editors can use them.
Yeah. Maybe I guess the other one is that custom Vimeo validation thing. It might be interesting.
Yeah, what's that?
The team's done a
you-
great job of like doing documentation for in the studio for eventually when we release it to the wider organization, because there's like 400 staff members here, and there'll be, you know, many people interfacing with the website eventually.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the latest custom blocks that we've added in, and it is pretty much is like a way to scrub videos on the front end. And I guess we have built it in a way to allow content editors to add annotations on top of the videos as they scroll and set particular timestamps for everything. And I think as we start building out more blocks where
just to understand, like this is I can place things. These texts will kind of show in sync with the video as it plays.
Yeah, we could show you this on the front end as well.
Yeah, but let's look at the data model first. So like each of these, like open one of them, and then this is the text, this is the title, and the timestamp here is like this is second number 1. Are these like in seconds? Yeah, exactly. And then how do people create these? Like, do they?
So we actually, I guess we upload the videos to Vimeo, and we use like a direct link from Vimeo as the source of our file, and then a content editor can go through and find out where exactly they want to put annotations or kind of information within the video.
And then they compute a number of seconds in their head, like 4 minutes. That's a 4 times 60 plus 20 seconds, and they put that in.
Yeah,
you can kind of just
you have really like a great content team.
And you find out where you want to put things.
Yeah,
but it says the number of seconds in absolute. Sorry, that's a detail. I just wondered, like, so this is like a little bit finicky, but very powerful, I'm sure, for the visual experience of it. Let's see it. It sounds amazing.
So this is something that we've made for or maybe I'll share the window again because it seemed more stable. So this is the 4th museum that we haven't touched upon yet, which is Powerhouse Parramatta, which is the largest cultural infrastructure project since the Opera House. This is going to open in 2026. So as I scroll my mouse, we can see the construction from 2022, 2024.
Where are the animations coming from? Like they are moving? Are they? They are scrolling like relative to time.
Yeah, this is Vimeo. So like that first one that we saw is like the 1 second mark, and then maybe it's 1.5. The video itself is only 20, like maybe 30 seconds long. Right. So as we're scrolling along, we can see the different milestones, the bridge between the 2 buildings, the latticing. Keep going up. So the buildings, the exterior of the building's almost complete now. It's taken about 18 months. And then
have you reused this? Have you reused this kind of let's call it like time-based titles in other types of content?
Yeah, I can pull up another one. Let's see. So these are like these we haven't published yet, but maybe we can
Maybe
do
by
so.
the time when this goes out, we
Yeah,
will be public.
we can have it. Yeah. So this is another version where we did some 3D scans of these research scholars that are coming through. So as we scroll up, we've got the profile of them and their project on the side, spinning around. So they kind of, this is like a kind of LiDAR scan of space. And then another consideration, I guess, is like the original.
So just yeah, exactly. Let's prepare you. Oh yeah. Okay. That's also interesting.
Yeah, and our original website was always to try to be mobile first in its design. Yeah.
Cool. Can you go back to that point cloud video and just look at the related content? Because I was just interested to see something.
Yep.
Was already populated, even though the content isn't done yet, and I guess that's by the power of tagging.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether this has got a related section at the end. It should do, actually. Yeah.
So here, can we see the tagging on that on this?
So yeah, this might be manually. Do you want to share your screen to look at this?
Yeah, I can share of this. Let me share this here. So I think this one's done a bit customized by just referencing stories in an array, which is the custom block that we have.
This is not an example of what I wanted to show. Amazing. So
I think we could probably build it out to do exactly that yet, but I'm guessing the content editors are probably just testing out content here just to see different things.
Yeah.
Essentially how that works is we'll have reusable related content sections that we could add in at the bottom of pages. We build those out as documents.
Interesting. So these are categories of related content, or?
Pretty much so, yeah. And we still allow editors to either create like automatic lists of related content or manual lists of related content.
What does automatic mean?
So yeah, the automatic will be us selecting and saying, just build out this. I don't want to build it.
Right.
And we can select.
And then that's when you use the tags, right? And then you can pick and choose a number of tags.
Yeah.
So it's not only matching the tags in the story to the tags in the kind of related content. You actually explicitly kind of map in a category that you design. Interesting. Interesting.
And manual is like the override in case we really need to promote one particular thing at that in relation to that piece of content.
That's interesting. So here a lot about automating that kind of these kind of really important but ultimately very boring to perform for a content team jobs. And then they can concentrate on creating that great, beautiful content.
True.
So you have other people working in the studio that aren't the content team, of course, but you have other roles that are interacting with the studio as well.
Yeah, so I guess one example, and it's very simple, is like the job postings for HR, which maybe we can spin up as well.
Up the studio again.
So the page is like an opportunities page, and it might be where there's initiatives for, like we have a design prize that's out at the moment. We have some First Nation ones. Then we have the regular jobs, like if we have a new head of digital starting, they might get advertised there.
And I think this is another example of like the small customizations in the studio just to help people who will be editing content. So here we've actually.
So now I'm logging as an HR person, and I only see this category.
Yeah. So you kind of get this nice focused look into the studio. So you can just go in there and then edit the content you want to be editing, and not getting all the noise of all this other stuff that's around here. And I think just these small little customizations in the studio to help content editors keep focus and like do what they want to do easily. Is what we've been trying to do in the studio.
Are these opportunities, are they only listed on your front page? Does this kind of link anywhere else, or does it kind of integrate anywhere else?
No.
At the moment, it's only in the website, but I think the benefit about Sanity is like when we find places to put this content, it's just so easy to, you know, create a grok query to get exactly what we want.
Yeah. But you're just such an attractive employer that people will come to your site and look for opportunities.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, one of the things that we're working on at the moment, which might be interesting to think about, is like instances of Sanity as wayfinding and within the new museum that I showed you that construction video before. So next year we'll be fitting that out, and we'll have a bunch of different screens throughout the space. And what we could do is share. I can kind of walk you through what that space might look like. So
are you using the Sanity to power your internals or parts of your internal signage?
Correct. That's the ambition. And so therefore, if something's just a headless way, so if like I'll go back and show you the front end of that programs page just to begin. So we have the programs page here. Are we still streaming?
I see the programs on now on your mouse. Yeah, now I see the front page.
Okay, for some reason it's not coming across.
I see.
Let me try a different
avenue. Tab with okay.
Oh, it's loading. I can see that it's loading. Okay, here.
Yeah, I see your tabs. Okay, now I see the games event program. Yeah.
So this is a festival. So it's one larger program with multiple child events. And then we have this kind of programs page that, you know, overlooks with all these different types of programs. So eventually, like when Parramatta's open, it will have its own selection of programs. So if we say select Castle Hill, which is the place where the collection's stored, we have those programs for Castle Hill. It's only open on the weekend, so there's not as many programs. So eventually we'll have something like this on display at the location through signage. And I'll just whip up a Unity build that we've created to kind of demonstrate that.
So this is the game engine Unity.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we'll be able to walk through the space.
Or the real-time 3D engine. Sorry, that's,
but it's a very it's a very low resolution variant of what it could be. So it's kind of like low fidelity. Let me just.
But so now in this prototype, you are using Sanity content inside Unity, or at least
no, but it's just kind of an example of where
we imagine
you'll sit. Yeah. Not
Yeah,
yet.
you would do that. Yeah.
We're planning to do that. Yeah, we're still like we're still a while away before we started. So let me just hopefully this works. Haven't tried it while streaming.
Works.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we have this it's a little glitchy. So if we come down here, this screen here underneath where you're looking, those two screens, that's quite large, and that's going to be one programs screen. And then as we go through and upstairs, sorry if it's moving quite fast, but we'll just get to the wayfinding screen. So you see there's a variation of our programs. So because the space is so large, it's like it'll be one of the biggest cultural institutions in Australia. And it's got multiple levels, multiple things happening. It has a cinema, it has like a live demonstration kitchen, it has multiple exhibitions, multiple programs happening all at once. We wanted some type of wayfinding system that is going to update every minute. So we're going to be bringing in Sanity to as part of the wayfinding within throughout the building.
And then you use the live content API to have this just push if you change anything, or if you have to move something around, it will just kind of update.
Precisely.
That was.
And so yeah, we're excited to start the process of working on that.
So cool. So that's kind of your first foray into reusing your content other places, but like, you're all set up for that. Like, you're all prepared for that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right now I'm seeing an echo of myself. That's kind of
sorry about that.
off-putting. Thank you. So let's see. So I think this is super amazing. It's beautiful. It's visually rich, rich content. You have appropriate kind of balance between call it pragmatic stuff like these hierarchies, like that kind of wouldn't be traditional structured content, but you still have these top level objects that makes it reusable and makes it kind of computable still. Striking, I guess, a balance between the needs of the editorial team and the kind of structure of the site, and the needs to have a proper kind of database-like structure for your core objects. That's super interesting. What have you learned? Like, what could you tell someone who's kind of now entering into this kind of similar challenge? What could you tell them that you would have told yourself back when you started?
I think it's an interest. There's like, for me, there's been an interesting juggle between the traditions of what a website is and using a headless system and trying to rewire the way that visitors might engage. And we talked about it a bit before, where we're in a state where organic traffic will go straight to one page, but they might not travel to the rest of the pages, say, or the rest of the site. And part of the headless was to try to pull things together and have them interrelational. So I think that's been one really exciting thing to have explored. And what do you think?
I think like the freedom that Sanity allows in terms of building customizations in an easy way, like custom input components, customizing the studio to help content editors navigate things, is super important, because at the end of the day, I guess these content editors are users in themselves, and if we can make their life easier or help them enter this content that we're trying to build, it's a good focus, I think, as developers. And Sanity's just made it super easy to kind of do these things, which is awesome.
So ultimately, you learn nothing. You made the right choice, and your recommendation to everyone else is to make the same choice. I'm sorry, no, that's a good.
Yeah, I feel like I'm really excited to see how like the collections website integrates, because we have so much content there. There's like 3 million images, and so one of the initial motivations for going to Sanity was that like organizations like Nike or whatnot that have massive inventories are using it as their system, and to centralize, rather than having one image spread across multiple places like in the dams or database, we can have a single image that is populated throughout the website. So that hero image that you see on the homepage can be also the same as the collections website, as well as on the digital signage in the building. And so that structure, I'm really excited to see it manifest.
In fact, the inciting incident for Sanity becoming a company was we used it as an agency it was an internal tool for us, and we used it to organize, among other things, the internal collection of MIT's kind of CAVS institutes, like a historical precursor to the Media Lab. And they told us, like, what is this system? It's better than anything we can buy to organize the collection. And we're like, oh, we should probably just be a company making this system, not an agency. And here you are. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing. This was amazing, very inspiring. I always love to see kind of this combination of good content modeling that turns into visually rich, kind of extraordinary kind of user experiences, because that's so easy, like to forget either of those, like to make it very technically correct but like ultimately boring, or very visually rich but impossible to maintain. But you kind of found that balance, it looks like to me.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody's time.
Thanks for the chat.
Brilliant.
Good. That's a wrap.